Well, I hate talking in generalities, so let's bring it down to the earth here and get it more practical. Well, and ego is definitely a part of that. You're holding on to the past because that's what brought you success. That's who you think you are. You know, a lot of power is thinking ahead, 2 or 3 moves ahead. And in the concealing intentions law, I talk about Otto Bismarck, the German chancellor, who was a master. He was playing that kind of game, that kind of chess on the political chessboard of Europe at the time. He was thinking several moves in advance. And in order to think several moves in advance, you know what your intentions are. You know where you're going to go in 6 months, right? And so you have to have a vision of where you're headed, but you have to keep everybody else in the dark so that they can't predict what's happening next. So part of concealing intentions, part of business, part of power is the ability to think strategically, to think in advance, to think several moves in advance. And that means having intentions, having moves that you've planned out, but you want to keep other people on their heels. They don't know where you're going to go next. To change yourself, to become fluid, to be something different, means you have to let go of the past. You have to let go of your ego. So that's a very important quality. Well, it's a delicate game. As I tried to say in the beginning, don't think of power as these are these set laws that I have to follow. It's got to be this way. It's got to be A or B or C. Open your mind up. Don't be so rigid about it. So sometimes you have to be consistent, right? That's your brand. If you're certainly changing your brand every 6 months, people don't know who you are, don't know what it's about. You're going to lose your customers, your clients, right? But if you're too stuck, if you're too always the same, people are going to be bored with you. So the game in 2025 and moving forward has a lot to do with attention. People have written about this. But attention is money. Attention is something that you can monetize, right? Being able to get the attention in a world where you're competing with billions of other people out there, right? Okay? And so in order to gain people's attention, people get very bored, right? They get very bored very quickly if you're always the same, if you always have one note. I mean, I've always believed this. It's been kind of an instinct of mine. And so I wrote the 48 Laws of Power, and it was successful. It's gone much more popular since the first couple of years, but it was quite successful. And I could have easily made my second book, The 48 Laws of Power, Part 2. People wanted me to do that. They wanted me to go further into it. But I never, ever, 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 ever want to be predictable. I don't want anybody to ever think what my next book will be. So I go to seduction, which is quite a change from power. And then I go to war, which is a little bit similar to power, but it's also different. Then I go to book with 50 Cent. Then I go to mastery, which has nothing to do with the other books, which is all about your brain, how to master your field. Then I do the human nature. And now I'm doing a book on the sublime. So I want to stay one step ahead of people. I never want them to think, oh, I know what Robert's about. I know what his next book's going to be. I know what his laws are. He's very predictable. I'm never going to go in the direction that people expect me to go in. Good. So you have to understand that the person above you has an ego and has probably a bigger ego than you do, obviously, because they're powerful. But with an ego comes insecurities, okay? So you must be aware that the person above you has insecurities and probably has more than you do because they're constantly worried. Do people still like me? Am I still doing as well? Am I as popular as I was a year ago? Am I getting as much attention as I deserve? Am I doing a good job? He or she is very insecure. They're thinking about these things all of the time. So what happens is if you try too eagerly to impress them and you do such a good job on some project or something, and then all the attention accrues to you for doing that, then you're going to trigger their insecurities. Wow, this person's getting the attention and not me. Maybe they're after my job. Maybe they're more popular than I am. They're not going to consciously think this because they don't want to admit that they're insecure, but unconsciously they're worried about you. They're thinking things that maybe you're a threat, right? And slowly they're going to build up kind of resentment towards you. And what will happen is you'll probably be fired or you'll be demoted. So if you work hard on a project for somebody else from somebody higher up in your group and you do a great job, you need to tone it down a little bit. Don't take so much credit. Let them bask a little bit in the glory. Let them have the attention. Yes, they're the genius behind the project. I was just executing their desires. That makes them suddenly go, wow, this person, you understand that they did a great job, but they're being a little bit humble. They're giving you the attention which you deserve anyway because you think you do, okay? But if you're too weak about it, if you're too humble, if you're going, oh, you don't take credit at all, you weren't involved in it at all, that makes you look weak, right? So you have to be kind of nuanced. You have to do a good job. You have to try really hard. You have to do the best that you can, but you got to let the person above you take some of the credit, take some of the glory. Otherwise, they're going to be wondering about you. They're going to be thinking that you think that you're better than them, and you're going to trigger their insecurities. This is the most important law and power that I want you to engrave in your brain right now as you listen to me. And it's the following. Everybody has insecurities and has an ego. And the worst thing you can do for your boss, for your colleagues, for the people underneath you, is to violate their ego, to make them feel insecure. You will pay a price for it. They will resent you. They will work against you. They will betray you in the end. So never lose sight that everybody around you has an ego and has insecurities. I worked in Hollywood unfortunately, for like 10 years. It kind of inspired the 48 Laws. I say unfortunately because I hated Hollywood. But I would work for a film director who would be doing a screenplay, and I would write large portions of the dialogue and I would contribute to it. Nobody ever knew that. It was always his name on it, right? He got all the fame, all the glory, all the attention. And at the time, it kind of bothered me. I was kind of resentful. And then when I wrote the 48 Laws of Power, I had this idea that, Robert, you did the wrong thing. You were stupid. The game of power should have been, that's how things are, right? When you look at a politician who gives a great speech and everybody's going, wow, Barack Obama, that was an amazing speech.
Someone wrote that speech.
Somebody wrote it. He never wrote it. And you never know that name who wrote it. You might, but no one ever gets that attention. When you see some journalist giving some really interesting monologue on television, somebody else wrote that, did all the research and gave them all the notes for that. Comedians, Bill Maher doesn't write his material. He's got a team of people writing all the jokes, right? You never see them. You never know them. Maybe the credits roll by really quickly, right? So that's how powerful people operate, okay? And I should have just accepted it. I should have been more humble. I should have said, that's how the jungle is. There are people who take the credit for it. And if I didn't resent it, I wouldn't have lost energy. If you get too worked up about things, if everything is so dramatic, if you're emotional, if you're reacting against everything, it drains you of energy. It clouds your mind. You're not a good strategist. You're not a good warrior in life. You're not a good power player because your brain is just sinking into this mud of reactions and emotions. So I should have just been more zen about it. This is how the game is. Eventually, if I keep writing this good dialogue and stuff, he's going to let me take credit, or I will get credit for it eventually if I'm humble, if I'm serious, if I learn the game, if I play it right. If you play the game of power right, you read the book, you understand it, you will be rewarded at the end of the game, right? You will be rewarded. So I wrote that chapter because people in power use that and know about it, but also for you, the person starting out or who's younger, to understand that that's what's going to be happening to you. People are going to be taking your work and taking credit for it, but just accept that.